I'm CK. Tonight we have what I hope will be a fun one. It's a Ferris wheel model, colorful. This is from MiOYOOW. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce this. MiOYOOW. I am unable to do that. That's my fault. So we'll see how much fun this is. The box is bigger than usual for this level of kit. We'll put it together, see how much fun it is. Hope you enjoy the video. Just dropping in to set some context for this video. This is a long video. There's a lot of surface mount soldering, and then there's a lot of mechanical assembly, a lot of which I didn't really want to cut out, so it made the video long. Now what I did do is I did speed up or cut some of or most of the soldering. So all the surface mount stuff I've really compressed because it takes a lot of time. Now I'm doing something different now, and I'm releasing the soldering by itself as its own video. So either look in the description field of this video or search for CK Builds Ferris Wheel Surface Mount Soldering Real Time, and you'll find that if you want to look at that. So don't worry if you think the soldering is all chopped up and not something you can learn from. Go find that video, which I'm posting right after I post this, and you can see that too. Please let me know if this adds value to you in the comments. And again, hope you enjoy it. Let's see what's in the box. Here's a QR code for a build guide. That's good. Bag with stuff. A box, we'll get it ready for recycling. Ah, look at this. Okay. We've got some work ahead of us. So let's go part by part. First, here is the wheel part of the Ferris wheel. Okay, folks, see what we have here. On this side, we've got the commutator ring that's going to bring power to this thing, I assume. Here are some resistors, surface mount resistors. Here is, looks like a power connector. It looks like USB power connector, or USB pinout for a power jumper. I don't know what that'll be, because I thought this was a commutator to turn, but we'll see. Here's a controller, surface mount, more resistors, and on this side, these are all surface mount LEDs. So we've got a bunch of them, and then these large pads. Again, I'm not certain how this works, because again, I would have assumed it would spin like this, and there'd be brushes to bring power across those two commutator rings, but that wouldn't explain this pin header, which looks like USB pinouts, and it also wouldn't explain what these circles are. So we'll figure that out. So that's the big piece. Here's a piece of paper. It doesn't have much on it. It's got a parts list that unfortunately is all in Chinese. I'm going to assume that this QR code has some instructions and a parts list in English or even any European language. We can figure it out. But one thing, number 3, LED, 120 of them. That's a lot of surface mount LEDs. So if you want to do surface mount practice, this is going to be the kit for you. Here's a motor to drive the whole thing with. It feels like it's got, it's a motor and gearbox integrated together. Put that in that bin. Over here we have what I'd call LED City. We'll look at that in a minute. Here's some more mechanical parts. This is, I'm going to assume that's the base. And then here's the support. And here's some discs. I don't know where they're going to go, because I don't think they go here, because that covers up one ring of LEDs. So I don't know where that goes. And there are a bunch of them. There's more of them, and of course they all have paper around, plastic film on them that I'm going to have to peel off. Gosh, there's a lot of them. Maybe these go out here on the edge here. Let me see, if I set that down like so, it might clear that way. Here's some black foam feet. You can see it's been stamped with a cutter to make little circles. Here's a dingus. I don't know what that's going to be, but it looks like it's got a captive nut. So it'll screw, well, these have captive nuts too. So I bet it goes like right here. It's probably a control of some type. Then we've got a half ring, which probably goes here. We've got another little ring with some arcs cut out of it. It's not a gear, but it's a something. Bunch of nuts and washers. Then there are four little rectangular things with tabs on the end, and one little round thing. I don't know what that's going to be for either. So that's all the mechanical stuff in that bin. USB power. Another of the typical little remote controls. So that's all the mechanical stuff. I'll keep that all in that large parts bin. I'm going to need another parts bin. Let me see what I've got. Unfortunately, my other stainless steel parts bins are tied up with other stuff, so I'll use this plastic one. Tuck all the spare dividers back in there, and we'll put the electronic components in here. And let's see what those are. Oops. That almost got away from me. It's a little spring, and I would have lost that and been sad. I'll put that in the bin right there. Piece of red wire, piece of black wire, very thin. That's like 26 gauge, I believe. Power connector. And here we have the strips of LEDs. We've got a strip of yellow, strip of red, strip of blue, and strip of green. It's a lot of surface mount LEDs. Then here are all the surface mount resistors. Put those in there, put the LED strips in here. And this is the infrared sensor for the remote. And here we've got another spring, so 2 springs. I'm just going to dump this all out in my hand. Nothing left in that bag. And we've got an on-off switch here, which I'm going to, I think goes, bring this back in. I think that goes right here. Click, click. Oh, okay, so that means that the power connector will go here. And there's the panel nut for that. Oh, look at, here's the controller. Here's the little surface mount controller. Oh man. Let me zoom in a little bit on this. I don't know if you can see this, but the legs on this controller are really bent out of shape, which is bad for surface mount. I'll have to spend some time getting those straight enough so I can put them on the board. This is an STC chip, a 15W204S. I'm sure it's a little microcontroller. I may look it up, I may not. And then we have a bunch of LEDs, traditional type LEDs. I'm making a guess that they go at the apexes of these points, but I would not guarantee that. Now I'm looking here. Let's see what color these are, by the way. Bring my solder pad in. The solder pad that I made the other day with some silicone rubber from, 2-part silicone rubber from Amazon. If you ever want to make your own solder pad, customize it for what you want it to be, look for that video on my channel. It ended up being a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, and it was successful. So let me use my meter in continuity mode to try this out. So that's blue. It's not changing color. Try another one. See if they're all blue. Yeah. Oh no, that's yellow. Huh. Okay. Come on. Come off the probe. See what color this one is. That's red. Yep. Golly, guys. And that one's also red. So we've got different colors for these LEDs. Let me put them in the bin. Now we've got two, looks like we've got 2 surface mount capacitors. Put that in the bin. And they gave us another short piece of red wire. Don't know why. Now again, I haven't looked at the instructions for this yet, so I'm still trying to figure out how this is going to go. So this is going to mount probably like that. So the controls and the power connector are in the back. Then we've got this ring, which feels like, because it's oblong, I believe this will go on this shaft, because no, that's way, if it does, it's way too sloppy loose. Huh. Because somebody's got to be back here turning this whole thing. Oh, okay. Or maybe I'm wrong, because maybe this, I think I've got it now. I think this mounts somewhat like so. I'm not, again, I'm just, this is the fun thing for me, is to get something like this and try and figure out how it goes together before it actually goes together, because that can give you good insight into just problem solving and other things. And you may be completely wrong. I may open the instructions and it's completely wrong. See, what I don't know is how this goes, because it can't go like this, I don't think. But we'll look at the instructions in just a minute and see what that is, because that's all the parts. And again, it's going to be a lot of surface mount soldering. So if you want to watch that and see how I do surface mount, this is probably one of the simpler surface mount stuff, are all these LEDs. It's a lot, but it's relatively simple to do. The one thing I am concerned about, and I think I'll do this right now, I'm going to try and work on these pins a little bit. So I'll do it here on camera, because why not? Now I'm going to start with my needle nose. See, there are 4 pins. This side is fine. Oops. Half of this side is okay, but there are 4 pins here that we want to get down. And again, the problem is these have a little jog in them. You know, the leg comes out, goes like that and like that. And I would prefer not to get rid of that, so I'm going to use my little pokey thing instead of the pliers. And that actually aligned it pretty dang well. I'm going to put it down here on this, on my flat workbench surface, and use my pokey thing to press it all down. And I think that did it. Yeah, that looks just dandy. Okay, good. So I don't have to worry about that. Now I'm gonna get the soldering iron heated up and get the build guide up, and we'll start putting this thing together. So they do have a good build guide, and we may as well get started with step 1, the microcontroller. Now, the way I do these, and let me zoom the top camera in a little bit more. I'm going to be working right here. So first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of solder on one pad. That's actually too much. There we go. A little bit of solder on that one pad. So again, we've got one pad soldered. Let me grab the IC out. Now it's got a little dot here, and there's a little dot on the circuit board, so we know where things go. Let me try not to flip it around too much. Now, hopefully I won't get my head too much in this shot, but it's tough because I need to look downwards at this. So I'm going to make sure the legs are all aligned with their appropriate pads. I'm going to heat that little bit of solder, and it dropped down. So that leg is now firmly affixed. As you can see, it's not going anywhere. Now I'm just double checking that all the legs are aligned with the pads, and they are. Now, this is a step you can choose to do or not choose to do. I do, because I'm not always the steadiest of hand. So I'm going to take some of this flux and put it down here without disturbing the chip too much, because you can bend the pins if you're not careful. I'm going to put a bunch of flux down here. And this is primarily to keep from having solder bridge between these pins. This solder provides, this flux provides a little bit more of a barrier for the solder, as well as making a good joint. Now that's all I needed, just that little bit. And the little bit I put on there may actually be too much in itself. So, we'll do one leg at a time. And as you can see, I'm going between the legs and dropping a little solder down. I think that's all of those legs. Let me double check. Yep, they look all down. I'm gonna do this first one again. There we go. That's beautiful. Now we'll do the other side. And I'm making sure I'm still in this frame. Come on, that one. That one didn't cooperate quite as beautifully. And this flux is just keeping the solder from jumping from leg to leg and bridging. And there we go. And now we're going to do all the resistors. And there are, I believe there's 16 of them. These are the resistors for the control current for the LEDs. So they go there, 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 there. So in the manner of assembly line, I'm going to go ahead and again back the camera off a little bit more and put a dab of solder on one of each pad. I'll probably speed up playback on this. Now we're going to do all the LEDs on this side. And I'm actually not going to do this right now. It's getting late and the cat's got to get fed, and I don't want to get started on this and then stop. So we'll pause for tonight and pick it up tomorrow. Leave my ice alone. Now it's time to work on the LEDs. So as you can see from this diagram, for the red LEDs we're going to go to there, go all the way across, and to there in kind of a Z shape. And we'll do the same for green, yellow, and blue also. So what I'm going to do is do what I did with the resistors. Now I'll do a couple of these. But it is pretty much the same as the resistors and the capacitors we've done. So I'll put the LED here. These are actually a little bit bigger than the resistors and capacitors. Heat that up, tuck it right in there, and since I'm going to probably skip a bunch of this, I'll do this other end. Now, one thing I do want to point out here before we move on, as you can see, the negative cathode sides on this leg and this arm go that way. Now on this arm, they're on the other side, even though as I reverse it, they'll be on this side. But just be careful, because you'll be switching around, because it's a circle, and you don't want to mess it up. Now, the way I flip surface mount components is I don't try and flip them. I don't try and use the tweezers to actually roll them over. I bounce them. I drop them from 3 or 4 millimeters above the surface that I'm working on and just let them drop. And they might land up the same way again, but then you just drop them again eventually. Oops. Surface mount guys can squirrel around on you. And again, I mentioned the cross with the long leg pointing towards the cathode. On the front of the LED, where you can see where the tip of my soldering iron is, there's a green stripe also, which indicates where the cathode is. So that's going to be it. I'm going to be doing 100 of these of varying colors, and there won't be much to talk about for that except the same thing over and over again, and that's kind of uninteresting. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the cameras off while I go through this. I don't think anybody wants to see me solder every single one of these LEDs on. If you do, leave a comment and I'll do that, but in the future. But for right now, I'm going to turn the cameras off so I don't have an hour of just video of me putting LEDs in place without saying anything. So back after I've got all these LEDs on. Okay, so I changed my mind. I will do one whole series on camera, though I'll probably speed it up, but you can see how it goes together. And again, I've done the red, yellow, and green, and now I'm going to be doing the blue ones. So again, dab of solder on one one pad of each. Heat the solder, slide the LED in, then solder the other end. So here we go. Alright, that's all the surface mount LEDs. So I'm going to take a real look here now to make sure I've got the polarity all right all the way around, because you can see the little green stripe. Next, we're going to be putting the IR sensor for the remote, so we can control it remotely. that goes here, and they emphasize that you want to make sure that you install it correctly. Oops. So, oops. It goes like so that the sensor portion is showing on the front of the wheel. And I'm going to do this like I did for the LEDs. I'm going to put solder on one pad. So there it sits. Okay, now we're going to start doing the mechanical assembly of the base. So as I was peeling the film off all the plastic pieces in the kit, I said, well gosh, I probably should be able to see if this thing actually works at this point. So I got my USB cable that I've added alligator clips to the positive and negative leads inside the cable. So negative goes on the outer annulus. So we'll touch the inner annulus with the positive lead. Oh yeah, and look at that. Let me get it. That's what it's going to be looking like. Let me turn this light off. Probably see it better this way. So all the LEDs are working, I think. Let me get this. It's a little hard to... Yep, all the LEDs seem to be working. Up, there's one dead one. There's one dead red one right here. So let me get my iron and tweezers again. Now we'll go back. Can't tell which color these spares are. I didn't bother marking them because I was lazy, so just grab a couple out. We'll keep grabbing them out until we find one that works. Let's go back and use the meter again to power these up. There's a red one, good. Put the wheel back on here. Yes, and all the red LEDs now work. Okay, good. So you can check your work at this stage in the project before you go ahead and do any mechanical assembly. Now we're going to put this guy in here, and we're going to take the long, we're taking the 10mm screws to stand this up. Here's the 10 mils. Now this is the painful part for me, even though this is better than most, because most of the time it's inside a case, and if you don't get the nut in right and it falls into the project. And that's always a pain. But this is not so bad because you can support the nut on both sides with your fingers. We're going to work with this piece now. Where is it? Where'd it go? This piece, which is the commutator element. This is what's going to go, going to contain the wire and the springs, which will transmit power through to the commutator ring later. And these are 15 mil, just double checking. Yeah. So just like the little diagram shows, 2 washers, the screw, and then these round spacers. Huh. I don't have those. Sorry, I'm not, there's no round spacers needed necessary. I'm sorry, I got confused. 2 washers, because that's what's going to capture the wire, and then this nut will secure everything in place, but I'm not going to tighten it right now, because if I'm going to be inserting a wire between those 2 washers, I don't want to do that right yet. So again, we'll just kind of finger tighten those, and as you can see, this is what it's going to do. One will be supplying power to the outer, one will be supplying power to the inner. Let me angle that a little bit better. So now we're going to go ahead and put the wires in, and these will be the 2 long wires. And they're stripped for about 1/8 of an inch, 2-3 millimeters. I'm going to strip a little bit more just because I'm like that. Now you gotta, of course, be careful that you do the right one and the right one. So the red wire, the positive power, will be going to, I don't know, for lack of a better term, the middle position. I'm actually going to curl this a little bit. Give it a little hook. But not too much, because I don't want to have insulation caught between the 2 washers. I just want the wire caught between them. I'm actually going to back my nut off a little bit while I do this. There we go. Should have done it the other way. I'm sorry, I'm going to reverse this. I did it wrong. You always want to have the wire pulling in the direction of tightening so it doesn't squeeze out the side. If that makes sense to you, it makes sense to me. So there's the positive terminal in place, positive wire in place. You get the negative wire. And again, take a little bit off here. A little bit more insulation off. And we learned we want to back this off a little bit on the last one, so we'll do that again. Put it between the washers. Clamp it on down nice and tight. There we go. Now we're going to mount everything up. Take the motor like so. We're going to take these 2 10mm. Oh, they want to go the other way, huh? going to take the spring bracket, so the motor goes like that. The motor will go like that. So the motor goes in first, like so, like so. Now we take the spring bracket, what they call the spring bracket, and put that on also. And then we will put nuts on the back of them. I'm not sure 10 millimeters is really long enough for this, but because I don't have any threads poking through the nut, and I always liked when I designed mechanical stuff before most of you were born, you always want at least 1.5 threads of the screw or bolt going through the end of the nut, and this doesn't. So that's the way it goes together, and I'm going to do this just 'cause we can, because then it's going to be like that. And as you can see, the screws here don't actually touch the annulus, the wheel. There's going to be springs involved in that. Now we'll get those springs, and this is where we're going to be very careful that we don't have the springs go flying off into space, because they're springy. So one spring will go there, one spring will go there. Again, I'm a little concerned here that this spring is touching the outer ring also. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to take my needle nose and see if I can square this off a little bit. Let me go ahead and power it again and see what happens now. And I got the wrong red wire again. Okay, that seems to be okay. And now I'm going to bring up the lights for a second. We're doing a full preview of what this is actually going to look like when it's... Actually, I'm not going to do the full preview. I'm going to just bring up, see if the way I've got the spring configured now is enough to give enough current to the front side to power the LEDs. And it does. Okay, so I think we're set Now we're going to put the switch assembly together. Make sure I get this right, because we will want this going the correct way. There we go. So that means the power plug will go that way. And let me get the panel nut for this. Oh, come on, it's sliding under one of the little partitions. Panel nuts onto plastic connectors are always a little bit fiddly because the metal wants to cut into the plastic more than thread onto it. Make sure we're going the right way. We are. I don't know if it has enough threads to actually grip in there. I'll hold it with these. Oops. Hold it with these. See if I can tighten it down. Okay, that's plenty tight now. Good, let me back it off, in fact, a little bit. So that's the power connector. And now the power switch has got little collapsible wings, so that just pushes through and it'll click in. It'll be a friction fit. If I can get it through there. Ah, come on, guys. I don't know if they made that hole big enough. I don't think they did. I'm going to take off one of these side lugs. And up is up. And there, with one of the side lugs taken off. It's a little loose, but I don't really care. That's done. Now, before we do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and actually power this with the official power connector. To make sure everything is soldered correctly. One thing you might have noticed, there's no diodes in this, so there's no polarity protection, which isn't too bad. Then we get the power supply in, and got the switch wired backwards, but that's okay. So it seems to be okay. I'm not going to give you the full demo yet. I was just verifying that it works, and you can do that too at this step in your project. Now we got a couple of more things to do. One that's a little bit more, it's probably going to be a little fiddly. Because we're going to make two little, take these little rings and mount them here, and they're going to have LEDs that rotate around. And it's a little, looks a little complicated, so let me see what I'm doing here. Let me put the Ferris wheel to the side again. So we're going to take one of these LEDs, and it says the short pin is slightly bent. The long pin are bent. Not sure what that really means. I'm just going by the picture here. Okay, so the long lead goes up here, apparently. And the short lead goes there. And we bend the LED downward like so that it goes into the little cutout there. Now we take a short pin and it goes to roughly there. I think I got this wrong already. I do, I have it wrong. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, it doesn't want me to actually go through that. So now we're going to bend this up and over and up again, kind of like that. And then, and again, this is a little wacky. And then bend it over. Because what's going to happen is we're going to put this, yeah, this is just goofy. Oh, I see what they're trying to do. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to bend it around in kind of a W, but I'm not actually going to do it as well as they do in the picture. So we're going to put this up here. The positive goes through. So this is all, I'm not a big fan of this. So we're basically making this a brush, but it's got to be really kind of close in, or else it'll interfere with some of the diodes, LEDs. can't, you just have to bend the other side, and that's going to brush against that resistor. Well, that's no good. Trim that off. Because since this is supposed to rotate with the movement of the wheel, you got to make sure nothing, it doesn't interfere at all. This is an addition to this kit that I don't know whether it adds any value or not, but I'm also going to power it up again to see if this actually even lights up, if it even makes enough contact to light up. Yeah, it lights up, but it doesn't really rotate. Let me see, okay, when I make it loose enough to rotate, it doesn't have enough contact. Okay. No, that's the least good part of this kit so far. Everything else is fine. This design is a little dumb. But I'll go ahead and put the rest of them on. And I got to do that off camera because it's kind of fiddly and I don't want to take the time looking at this. So I'll get those little ringlets up, and then I think it's time for a full demo. Okay, let's power it up. And that looks pretty neat. As you can see, these danglies are kind of hit and miss on lighting up. They're a pretty bad design. I may even take them off. But the rest of it, the wheel itself, the motor, the LED light show. Let's try the remote control thingy and see what it does as I press various buttons. Let's press 1. Out from the center. Press 2. Different pattern. Press 3. Rotating. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. It's pretty neat. Then we've got plus and minus buttons, so I can speed up a lot. Look at that. We'll slow it down again. See how slow it can go? Oh, it goes past. Switch patterns with next and previous. What does this button do? Nothing. Test button does nothing. Actually, it does. No, it doesn't. Power button, of course, does nothing. And the menu button does nothing. But it looks pretty good. Good little kit. Except for these dangly things, which are just a bad design that you can't really make better. The rest of the kit's great. If you're new to surface mount or want to learn surface mount, this would be a good kit to do it on because there's lots of space for the surface mount components. It's probably the easiest surface mounting you'll ever do, and you end up with something that's kind of fun to play with. Hope you enjoyed the video.